Now, on Tuesday, Senator Bernie Sanders proposed a brand new wealth tax to the richest Americans. It's an idea that's grown in popularity since AOC talked about taxing the rich at 70% earlier this year. But it's actually been around for a very long time. Bernie Sanders actually introduced a bill back in 2014. So now Elizabeth Warren made a lot of news when she came out with her own wealth tax earlier this year on ultra millionaires. And now Bernie Sanders has put out his newest plan to tax the wealthy. And it's actually described as a tax on extreme wealth. And it actually is very, very bold. Now, what it would do is it would create a 1% tax on wealth between 32 and $50 million. That's where it starts. Already more aggressive than Elizabeth Warren's, and it gets better. It actually gets more progressively higher on the richest Americans. Now, before you freak out, this will not affect you. Regular people, if you're making $20,000 a year, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, this will not touch you. This is only for people making, at a start, over $32 million a year. Most people, you are not going to see that. This affects probably 0.1% of Americans. So now, let me give you the framework here. As I mentioned, the 1% tax on 32 to 50 million. That's just having that wealth, right? 2% tax on 50 to $250 million, 3% on 250 to $500 million, 4% on wealth from 500 to a billion, 6% on 2.5 to 5 billion, 7% on wealth from 5 to 10 billion, and 8% on wealth over $10 billion. So economists say that it would slash the fortunes of billionaires in half over 15 years and raise an estimated $4.3 trillion in revenue during the first decade. And it would also have the impact of making Jeff Bezos a lot less wealthy. Still, they would be incredibly wealthy. Bezos himself would pay about $9 billion in taxes per year. Remember, Jeff Bezos is worth about $120 billion. And after this wealth tax, he would end up being down to about $40 billion. Oh my God, only $40 billion for Jeff Bezos? Horrible. Horrible. No, I'm kidding. It'd be great, actually. And that's the point here, right? To tax that wealth. Bernie Sanders said this: I don't think that billionaires should exist. This proposal does not eliminate billionaires, but it eliminates a lot of the wealth that billionaires have. And I think that's exactly what we should be doing. Now, why would he want to eliminate that much wealth? Well, because having that much in so few hands is actually dangerous for the country. I know you're thinking, wait. Why? Well, think about this. At a certain point, you don't need any more wealth. You're past the need for more money. You've got housing, transportation, food, energy, all the resources they would ever need for the rest of their lives. Plus anything recreational they want, art, whatever. And most importantly, they don't have to work. They have time to pursue any sort of creative outlet. That's wonderful for them. Now, these same people, though, they continue to make wealth off wealth, despite not having to actually actively earn it. It's all ends up being passive income. So why should that income be allowed to concentrate into the hands of people who don't earn it and therefore will also never use it? I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? Why should billionaires be able to hoard immense wealth and starve the rest of us of its benefits? Does that make sense? You might think, okay, look, but how is it dangerous? Because the more wealth that it collects at the top, the less there is for anyone else. High levels of income inequality are not good for the long-standing health of a country. We have revolutions that have happened because of wealth and income inequality. Look, to save the billionaires, okay, let me go back here, right? So now, when you let wealth and inequality get to an extreme level, you will get an extreme response. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to prevent that extreme response. We are trying to prevent the pitchforks. the proverbial pitchforks from coming out for the rich. This is how you do it. You tax their wealth. Or else, if you don't tax the wealth, then there's going to be another way that people are going to end up getting their share of the pie. Okay, a fair share. So we don't want that terrible thing to happen. Okay, and so here's the thing: believe it or not, this wealth tax helps the 1% as well as the 99% because it prevents that. In fact, let me give you uh, a letter from Gabriel Zuckman and Emmanuel Sayes. So those are economists, right? And they said a progressive wealth tax is the most direct policy tool to curb the growing concentration of wealth in the United States. Senator Sanders' very progressive wealth tax in the top 0.1% wealthiest Americans is a crucial step in that direction. Great. So now, in order to prevent the rich from evading the wealth tax, Sanders' plan would have enforcement and oversight mechanisms, create a national wealth registry. It would increase IRS funding for enforcement. It would create a 40% exit tax on the net value of all assets under $1 billion and 60% over $1 billion for all wealthy individuals seeking to expatriate to avoid paying that tax. Oh, you want to leave America? Well, that's going to cost you, buddy. I love that. Also, it would make enhancements to the international tax enforcement and anti-money laundering regime, including the strengthening of the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. Now, all that money that he's going to raise, about $4.35 billion, will also be able to fund Medicare for all, universal child care. So how do the rich feel about this? Well, some actually are in favor. Morris Perl, chair of the Patriotic Millionaires, called this plan a welcome addition to our national tax debate. He said, the wealthiest people in this country haven't been paying their fair share for a long time, and part of that problem is because our tax code only taxes the wealthy based on how much income they choose to take each year. The very rich get money not from earning it each year, but from spending wealth that they've already made. And he said, if our tax laws only target one without touching the other, then rich folks like me will continue to find ways to game the system, and our inequality crisis will continue to get worse. We are thrilled to see this proposal and look forward to more dialogue on this critical issue moving forward in the debates. So, bless the patriotic millionaires. They sure do live up to their name. Now, other rich people may not be so happy about this. So now one more thing. And one more thing that's important to address. So the establishment press is putting out the narrative that it was Bernie Sanders is stealing Elizabeth Warren's idea, that she came up with the wealth tax first. Bernie Sanders, again, already put out a bill back in 2014. Not only that, but he had this idea back in 1997, puts this out. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade on Warren here. This is not Warren's fault. This is the establishment press coming out with dishonest framing. Now, one big difference, though, between Warren and Sanders' plan, yes, they're both a wealth tax, but Sanders' plan is more progressive. It's more robust. Warren's plan is a bit simpler, raises about $2.6 trillion over the next 10 years. That's about half. And that's because her bracket or her tax plan has only 2 brackets compared to Bernie Sanders' 8 brackets. She only goes to about 3% tax max for people making over $1 billion. So that's where she stops. So, of course, there's differences. And it's not a bad thing to point out those differences. It's not an attack on Warren to point out the differences between those 2 plans because they are different. And you have to separate that out because they are 2 different plans with sort of the same goal. In fact, I think Bernie Sanders' goal more is to let's stop having billionaires, whereas Elizabeth Warren is more of let's tax billionaires, but let's use that to pay for policy. And so I get that, right? So altogether, though, great plans, both of them, both are progressive plans, but of course Bernie Sanders wins out on having the best plan, the most progressive, and the most robust. So, hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.